best thing you can do in the last days is watch and be prepared and get your house in order. Know the truth. The devil is going to try to deceive you in the last days. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe this video. See y'all at the end.
If you think the question is whether you believe or not, you've already lost. God is actually on the next slide of this class project, and the slide is, are you doing what you need to do, and have you made the final decision about if you're going or staying? And in fact, while I'm going, I will just keep going in this vein, because what I was seeing is these pictures that you can find online of long lines of people walking to whichever border they could find in Sierra Leone, and whichever border was closest to them. People trekked across their whole nation on foot. And as I was seeing that, I instantly knew that you that does this, but Celestial, where will we go? What will we do? I can't leave California. I don't have any money. That group of people are going to learn that life is so precious that when you hear gunfire 5 streets away, you will find out magically that you can walk. Magically. You will find out that the pressure you don't feel now, the pressure you feel now is a mental pressure and an emotional pressure. It's a mental pressure of what can I do? And it's an emotional pressure of I don't have enough. God knows who has enough and who doesn't. And what was said to me to say to you is that if you are someone of foreign descent and you make a decent living and you're still sitting here, you are not a thinking person. The first nationality that came to me, first nationality that was put in my head, and I don't even think that any other nationality was put in my head, not French, not British. The strong nationality that was put in my mind is Filipino. I don't even know if there's a strong Filipino presence here in America, but that's who was put in my head, Filipino. God was saying that if you are anyone who has a country to go to and you're doing Willy Wonka, wait and see, you're not a person who's wise. Because he said if you have means to relocate, you have money to relocate. That literally means get on the plane, go and do an exploration. You're sitting here as a Korean and you're flying to Korea to go and laminate your brows and make your already straight nose a little straighter, just so you can come back and do content. Get ready with me. I went to Korea to pluck my eyebrows and then they poked my face and I'm 25 and now I look 21. You're flying over there for toys and games, and God says you have a country to go to, and you hear that a slasher Mad Max Civil War is coming, but then you're doing Get Ready With Me. He was putting it into my heart that there's very little wisdom in the collective American population. People of means who can relocate when there's time on their side and no gun at their back, who do not do so. You're very strange indeed, because you are actually 3 rolls of the dice behind. Do I believe this? Do I not believe this? And God is already in the front, focusing on when the gates finally lock, when they finally close the border, when they're finally finished expelling all the people that I have been saying here since 2022, foreigners. God says he has no quarrel with you. He has no quarrel with you. It is not his desire to see you shed your blood in this war that is coming. This war is a punishment for Americans and their sin, their historical sin of shedding blood that they refuse to repent for, and in fact are getting ready to shed the blood again. I have finally understood that this is what the mass slavery prophecies that I've been carrying since 2019 are about. They are about the hard-hearted seed that is only now birthing itself in front of everyone. That not only are we not sorry for slavery, but thank God we have President Trump, because now we can do it again. Now we can bring the old laws back. Now we can get them on the plantation. They're already starting to decorate the trees of America with black bodies, and every single case has been ruled a suicide on the same day the body has been discovered. The day the body is discovered is the day the sheriff says, I see nothing wrong here. It was a suicide, obviously. He must have been a depressed fella. Every single one. We're up to 5 of them, and every single one has been ruled self-inflicted harm. But I have said here that no matter how depressed a black person in this country gets, hanging is not the usual method by which lives are taken, and definitely not outside on a tree. That's an absolute instant no-no. The triggering alone, when the first rope is thrown up, the guy would run away sobbing, like, what is wrong with me? The triggering of what happened in the past, God has told me and I've shared here, is bone deep, DNA deep. You can only get a black man on a tree, a black woman on a tree, if they're already concussed, dead, or in the center of a mob that knows it's not going to be disturbed because the whole town is in attendance. But these things are already happening. And so if you have the means to leave and your 3 dice rolls back like, oh, do I believe this? This is very upsetting. This is very upsetting. Then you are not thinking wisely, and you need to be told that, because the game you're playing, remember, no matter what game you play, when you hear these messages, no matter what game you play, unless you play the right one, you've already lost. The game you're playing is, can I wing it? That's what you're thinking. You're literally asking yourself insane questions like, how bad could a war get? Could I last out the 3 years? I really don't want to sell my boat. These are the rich people thoughts that you're thinking, and I will politely leave you to them. I cannot speak to the middle class in America, because as where we start, I don't know if we still have one. It's just the super millionaires, the people just below them that are doing okay, and then Struggle Nation. Straight drop to Struggle Nation. The one thing I do know that Yah was impressing upon my heart is that he was saying that it's unfortunate that instead of people who know that they have less, leaning to what is known, though it's not called that in the Bible, but leaning to what is known as desperate faith, they want to lean to the thing I just warned about in the beginning, like the man who was like, even if the windows of heaven opened. They want to lean to the faith of how. Well, Celestial, how will I do it? Celestial, how I have these disabilities? Celestial, how I have these children? I still have people doing that about the California prophecy. So basically, that wave that God said will stand up like a skyscraper, a wave so tall that it will actually cast a shadow on the water and on whatever part of the land it's standing up, it will be at the sight of that wave that you will abandon Celestial how, and then you will just realize, oh, I was throwing the dice the wrong way. It didn't actually matter how. I get it now. How was, even if I walk out of California, as in literally pack a bag, put my kid in a wagon, and start walking, trusting along the way, God, hey, it's me. I read in the Bible about Hagar, Abraham and Sarah put her out, and she literally just put her kid in a wagon and started dragging him out, and she was walking and she didn't have anything. She just had a skin of water and some bread, but she was walking crying at the way they'd use her. But you know what, Lord, the tears were coming down, but Hagar's 2 feet were getting out of Dodge. When that wave stands up, because it has been bothered, because the seawater has been bothered by a volcano blowing, and the volcano blew because the fault shifted. When those things happen, all the questions of how, and God knows I don't have any money, and what about me, all that stuff, it will all melt down to the crossing of the street, and you will realize that you are not faster than a sinkhole, earthquake, gas fire, electrical fire, vulcanized, tsunami wave. And that will be the last thing that you think about before realizing that when Lot was told, this town burns tonight, burn with it or get out. Lot got out, crying, with nothing, lost his wife in the confusion, but he got out. Many will learn. I've already brought the message that God said, many who will close their eyes in California are people who absolutely believe these prophecies. The question to life is this: nobody who believes prophecies and sits still can be counted as a person who believes God. Because when God told Abraham, leave everything, get going to a land that I will show you, he didn't say, wow, this is a wonderful encounter, I believe you, and sit still. He packed up and he got going. When the Lord spoke to Noah, remember God said, let's look at people in history. And the title of the prophecy is, what if you were warned? What if you were warned that a great flood was coming? Can you say that you believe the Lord and sit with no boat? Is it possible for your belief, which is your faith, to be evidenced without any works? Is it possible? James 2:18 says that it's not possible, because if you claim that you can show faith with absolutely no proof of what you have done to show that you had faith, that's why you got moving, working, building, doing something. James said, I will show you my faith, and you will be able to evidence my faith when you look at what I've done since I heard the word that I claim. I believed. God came to Noah, and the Bible says that Noah moved with holy fear, which means he moved into action and he started doing something. So that was one group of people. I'm just going to give this prophecy exactly as it was just pouring into my heart from the church, and I will carry on reading. And that's the part for those who have. And then he was making me to understand that there's always been a vast difference between the wealthy and the poor. I've been talking about this since I started the blog. I was using it in examples as simple as toilet tissue. And I was saying, you cannot sit there refusing to believe prophecy when you know you're also poor. Because that is like adding salt to a wound. You're poor, but then you also want to have the pride of unbelief, which is just a major shocker all around. Because what he was saying to me is this: the rich don't actually need faith to be saved. In the time of testing, in the time of a war, a rich person will go to the top of the penthouse, make a call, and get a helicopter to take them out. The Nepal government did that. The protesters were coming after them. They ran to the top of their tall buildings and they ran away. A rich person will be out of this country on a private jet before you can cough, before you can say civil war. A rich person is landing in Lisbon. All his money has been wired to Deutsche Bank, and he's divested some in whatever place he's going, and he's got the majority of it. He's making calls to Gustav in Switzerland. He's not thinking about you. God was showing me that wealth actually provides the salvation that people need. And now he's not talking about faith in Jesus Christ. Salvation literally means to be saved. A rich person can save themselves out of a civil war in no time. The rich person who doesn't feel like he wants to go and wing it in a foreign country will just go downstairs to his bunker. His bunker is stacked with 5 years of food. 5 years of food. He's a loner, no wife, no kids. He's got longevity. Without an earthquake, he'll be fine down there. God was showing me that rich people don't need to trust in him, because rich people are saved by money. And the Bible verse he gave me was Jesus himself speaking to the wealthy and telling them, make friends for yourself with filthy lucre. Make friends for yourself with filthy money. Making friends with yourself with filthy money is befriending a mercenary who can get you out of the country in no time. You can't afford a mercenary. I sure can't. Making friends is telling a guy, get us to Mexico. There's $100,000 in it for you. $100,000. That man, whether he's a Mexican coyote, right? or whether he's a retired American military vet who came home from Iraq or came home from Afghanistan or came home from Yemen or Syria, disillusioned, tired, broke, can't get a job, his back hurts him, his lower vertebra where he got shot, it hurts him, his wife is always nagging, and then she left him and took his only kid. He's just a lonely man, he's just on his war vet meds, PTSD. And you look at a man like that and you tell a man like that, a man with no ties to this world, his daughter's growing up and she hates him because she's full of the lies of her mother. Okay, you look at a man like that and you tell that man that you're going to make friends with him for an escape route for 100K. You mean the same 100K that your wife was always lipoing into her butt? Your wife is sitting on at least $1 million of your money in her chest, in her backside, in her mouth, that is still as thin as a pencil, and this man is offering life-saving salvation for you and aforesaid wife for just the price of her left breast. That's how you make friends, using money. Money buys helicopter rides. Money buys mercenary U.S. government patented serial number guns, survey escorts to the Mexican border, to Cancun or wherever that man is supposed to deliver you. He will deliver you. You sit and you watch these rude movies like The Hitman's Wife Part 2, whatever it is that Ryan Reynolds is doing. That's not my business. But you watch these things. You look at trained members of the U.S. government for hire. You know that you don't have a potato or an orange to offer a man like that to get you, the children, and Fluffy across the border. Why are you playing games? God was putting it into my heart that you that are at the bottom, your prayer should be the hottest because you don't have anything. But you're wasting time in comment sections all over the internet. God bless Prophetess every time she drops a video. God was making it clear to me that the wealthy don't really need his salvation when it comes to being saved out of wars and out of global conflicts. They will literally airlift them. Does Bill Gates look like the kind of person that needs Jesus for him to get out of a country where he was part of the war that he started? Bill Gates, who will go and sit and wait it out in Italy when everybody's dead and nuked by the Federalist Union of these United States. Then he comes back because now the population's way down and they can finally get all that oil land that the farmers are like, I'll never sell. It's my daddy's land. Yeah, but now you're all dead. Now the land is like, it would be a shame to let it lie fallow. They'll mix in your family's bones into the soil. Rich people, that's what they can do. Your very family that died on that land trying to protect it, Mr. Patriot, they will take all of you out and bury you in different parts of the field, and then they'll be like, now he's united with his daddy. And every time the tractor's rolling over your body, they'll be laughing that rich people laugh because they're amused by things that most people don't understand because most people are normal. You that has less, Yah was telling me that your prayers should be so hot that they should be like that blowtorchy thing that the welders are using. You know when the welder makes the flame so hot that it goes blue and white? That's how hot your prayer should be. That's how tight your prayer game should be, your fasting game should be. But you're wasting time. Well, what are we supposed to do? I guess God doesn't care about the poor. God is concerned about why you don't know nothing about the Bible. That's what he cares about. He's very concerned about how your Bible is like clearly glued together, that you can't find a single story of what the poor did when they lacked food, lacked protection, lacked a prophet, lacked a soldier. He's just stunned because he thought that he had covered everything, but apparently. So these are all the things, like I said. I can't really tell you what tonight's service was about because this was what my night's service was about, putting before the American people the fact that every gamble that you think you can gamble, you've already lost. It is my bounden duty to tell you that. God has said in these prophecies so many times, whatever you think you may need to withstand a civil war, triple it, quadruple it, exponential it, and then he said, add more. And it still won't be enough. He said that nobody's going to get through these end times without him. That means that the people in the streets are already fried. They're already fried. Unless they get in here, they're fried. So what that means is then you're the one who's being given the benefit. You're the one who's getting the mercy. You're the one who's getting the kindness. And if you're responding to that kindness with any, this is very wicked. This prophecy is very wicked. This prophecy is a lie. I don't think God said that. How can America have a war? If you're responding to these messages with any of that, you are in Las Vegas and you're blowing zeros. Like every time you throw the dice with any of that, you're just rolling zeros and your chips are just being raked in by the croupier. And so the first thing that I saw is a coming of one sign that we will find in the end times beast system, and it's this thing called the real ID. Now, this is the name that I have received for this ID. It may be called different things in different countries. So this is an identification that will be international. It will be global. It will affect all countries. And as the Lord said to me, humanity will greatly fight the coming of the real ID. So let me describe what I was seeing in this dream. I was seeing mass protests against this thing called the real ID. I saw them protesting in China and Hong Kong and Japan. So there were protests in Asia against this thing, and there were great protests in Europe. Very strong protests, especially among the English, all who fall under Great Britain. So this is Wales and this is Scotland. I saw loud, noisy protests. The way they protest or the way they celebrate when they have football matches over there, how people raise their voice and there's this raucous singing. That is how I saw the real ID being protested in the UK territories. People were extremely angry at this compulsory form of ID. So here in the United States, it's been brought to my attention that real ID is something that has already been teased or at least already been mentioned. I do not know if the thing that has been mentioned here in the United States is this thing, because this thing that God showed in the prophecy will be compulsory, first of all, and it will be extremely dismissive of privacy. This real ID is going to build a complete profile of a person whereby nothing will be hidden, nothing will be kept to the side, nothing will be away from the government's eyes. It will be the most, what is the word that I'm looking for? It will be the most invasive form of identification that the US has ever seen. So in this prophecy, I did not see America represented. I saw protests in the UK. I saw protests in parts of Europe, France, and Germany. I saw protests in Asia, but God did not even show me America. And what was coming upon my heart is because there's a lot of online outrage when things happen here. So the bulk of the outrage comes out expressed in social media. It's expressed in typing a lot and making a lot of comments. But in terms of a large, cohesive, and sweeping wave, it doesn't happen like that. And I think one of the reasons it is like that is because this is a continent that is also a country. So it must be extremely difficult to organize cohesive mass protests and things like that. But other countries are much smaller, and it's much easier for their people to simply get together in all the provinces and in all the regions and in all the various cities and do the same thing on the same day. So as I've seen, the response to the coming of the real ID in America, you can find it in this prophecy called A New ID for America, which was just basically everybody lining up to get it. I just saw people lining up, and these lines were so horribly long and took forever to process, and that is what I saw. But in other countries, they did not take this announcement quietly, and that is because the government was trying to give itself extremely overreaching powers. This real ID is going to be part of the NW, you know what, the world order that is one, a coming global system in which every nation will be plugged, whether they want to or not. And so People were offended because this ID is a digital identification that will track you like a prisoner who has been allowed out of jail on parole. So you know, when people come out of prison on parole, they are tracked and monitored in everything that they do in life, because obviously the logic behind it is we're keeping an eye on you to make sure that you live up to the promises that you made to the parole board, that you will not offend again, that you will not commit crimes again, and so we're watching you. But the real ID is going to use a digitized form of parole. It's going to follow people. Excuse me, there's a lot of noise in the background. Using digital footprints, and by giving people a lifetime number, the real ID is going to digitally monitor the population. So basically, we're going to be watched at every step in life. We're going to be watched through the real ID, because the real ID is going to collate data. It's going to pick up information concerning every single action that you do. So for instance, right now, you give the school, your child's school, information about yourself. And then when you go to pick up your child, somebody knows you visually. The teacher has seen you or something like that. But in a world where you may have to swipe ID to enter the school, it will be very easy to build a timeline that so-and-so entered the school at this time and picked up this child. And this is another thing about the real ID. You will know it's the real ID because every child will have one. This is not your social security number that you are assigned at birth. This is an ID that even newborn infants are going to pick up, that will give them a separate personal, social, international, business profile, and every single thing that your child does is going to be tied to them. And by the time a child is growing up even a little, those who have access to the data from the real ID will be able to already tell what kind of child this is and where this child's placement will be in the new world order. Please understand, I've shared this about the beast system that is coming, and one of the things about it is that individuals are going to be assigned in that world based on evaluations, based on perceived skill sets, based on social ability. So there's going to be a social credit score whereby if other people in your neighborhood or your community or your peer group are scoring you lower and lower, you are going to have less perceived societal value. So it doesn't matter how much God loves you, and it doesn't matter how much your family finds you valuable. If your social credit score is low and your real ID is collating that data, that celestial is becoming more and more and more unpopular, you will find your ability in this coming beast world to do certain things falling lower and lower and lower. An example of this that I shared from the dreams and visions that God has given me is of a man and a woman who got married, and the man wanted to fly his wife on honeymoon first class. He had enough money to buy first class tickets, but he did not have enough of a high social credit score standing to be allowed to buy first class tickets. So basically, he wasn't allowed to enjoy the privilege of flying first class, and he and his wife had to accept a lower classification. So this online profile will know every detail of private life, financial life, and every single thing that we leave across media, digital services, online tools such as the internet, email, social media, use of phones and computers, etc. It will also pick up information on property ownership and wealth. It will pick up information on money, the movement of money in your life. It will pick up information on all your health records and any other significant act of daily life. The real ID is going to be a large data pool per person. And so in Australia, I saw that Australia was angry, but their approach was not protesting such as in Germany and in France and definitely in the United Kingdom. I saw that people were using awareness. So they were standing on on, these makeshift platforms where you just put a few boxes together or crates and you stand up and you have the microphone and you're warning your community about this. And I saw that people were listening to these speakers. They wanted to be well informed. So they were standing around and they were, like this, so they were holding their chins and listening, but they were not enraged enough to actually go out in the street. They were listening in their towns and cities and local communities and thinking, well, they can just stuff it, can't they? I mean, what are they going to do? Drag me to get one? I just won't get one. And so I saw that people thought that civil disobedience in Australia, this seemed to be the way they wanted to fight it, that they were going to use civil disobedience and non-compliance, and they thought that this would be enough to stop the government making demands to forcibly register them for this real ID. But they could not be more wrong, because as the Lord showed me, the real ID will be enforced across the world. It will contain everything about your life. It will be the most invasive, comprehensive form of identification ever undertaken in this world. Unique because it will capture every data point about us, things that are not captured now, but also it will be international, meaning that it will be an international data pool that puts Interpol in the shade. Interpol basically only watches international criminals, but this real ID, all the countries will join into one sort of hive brain and upload and share and pool that data on all living citizens. I saw here in America that whether you were a citizen, whether you were only here for 3 years to get a degree, whether you were only here for 6 months as part maybe of a religious program or an extended holiday visit, as long as you were in the country when this ID began to be implemented, you had to get one. So it will cover access to banking, access to getting a telephone line, having access to government services like hospitals and other government services, and other basic things like banking that everybody should have a right to. The governments may give this real ID a different name, but please listen to some of the things that I have already shared about it, and also listen to this. The real ID can be loaded like an online wallet. So this might be one of the ways you see it, especially showing up in Africa, where they already have started using online wallets, and as well as certain countries in Asia where not everyone has access to proper brick and mortar banking or online banking. This wallet can be loaded, meaning that when you see the real ID, it will already have some capabilities on it, but because it is a loadable wallet from the government's end, the government will simply be able to add more and more and more functionalities on the real ID without you having a say. So the real ID is going to come, and maybe they're going to tell you it's a driver's license, it's also a federal identification, or if you're not in the United States, it's a state ID. So you can use it if you fly, you can use it if you travel. They may even say you can use it in place of a passport, but eventually it will have more and more overreach. It will then begin to track your financial transactions. It will then begin to demand access to your private health information. It will be able to track your purchase and travel patterns. When you swipe your card to buy a bus or a long distance bus ticket, a plane ticket, a train ticket, things like that, where you go to, how long you plan to stay there, and obviously how much money you spend there. So if people are hiding wealth overseas, the real ID will be able to pull that data back and join it to their tax returns in the country that they live in and expose to tax authorities, hey, did you know that this person who is a citizen of maybe Malaysia has 3 bank accounts in France and 1 in Switzerland, and when they travel there, this is the travel expenses they are using on a separate card, credit card or bank card that is not registered here in Malaysia. It will bring together so much information about people that there will be nothing that people can hide when this comes out, and it will be a national ID. So that is what God is letting us know. The Lord was letting me know when I woke up and he was explaining these things to me that people trade a lot of freedom for protection, safety, and functionality. So whenever this comes up, the first thing you will always think of is the harm that causes harm. The harm whereby we are 66 or 67% protected against that harm now in the United States. Over 270 people now carrying either part 1, part 2, or part 3, all 3 parts of the harm that causes harm. Peace and safety is the language of the future. If you are going to understand the things that Apostle Paul and Prophet Daniel and Prophet John in the book of Revelation were warning about, you have to understand the layout of the future landscape that is coming. So this is why I always say here on the Master's Voice, this is not a place where you're coming to get sensationalized prophecy headlines and everything. God has raised up this work to fully inform and warn his people about the times ahead. Because when I was about to make this video, I always ask, Lord, is there anything you want to share? As you can see today, I have no notes because the only thing that the Lord said to me is, let them know that they have a choice to make. We all have a choice to make about the days, months, and years that are ahead. And it may seem easy sitting here now to say, I'll never. But for instance, Jesus said, woe to women who are pregnant and nursing in those days. And that simply means that the kinds of decisions that parents are going to have to make in the future concerning the safety of their children, or whether they will be able to access basic medical care, basic food, basic services, education for their children, will be decisions that will stab the heart. So nobody wants to see their child uneducated. But when the education goes from being readily available to skyrocketing expenses, and it will reach a point where they suddenly say, hey, we're going to universalize education. That's right, we're going to do it, but all you need is your child needs this tracking wristband. Your child needs the trackable wristband, and you think, well, you know, the trackable wristband, okay, because the child needs to get education. And so into the trackable wristband station, the baby goes. But then after a while, they'll say, you know, the kids, we're actually digitizing things, and we want the kids to be able to scan all this information with their eyes. So the school is offering subsidized retina scanners, and this is transhumanism. Transhumanism is not going to come from the devil with a big forked tongue or 2 horns and red skin and a tail and a pitchfork where you can say, this is the devil, this is the devil. Transhumanism is going to be the most subtle and the most gradual process whereby humanity is transitioned, just like an old person crossing the road and needs help. Humanity will be helped across the road to get to the other side by Satan and the fallen and the world governments who are going to accede to the beast. To accede to something means to come into agreement with its protocols, its agenda, and its plans so that you eventually fuse into it and become one with it. Transhumanism is going to come gradually and be presented as the best thing that a sick person who has been on dialysis for 6 years ever heard. Let's do away with that kidney failure and let's redo you inside with adamantium and titanium and all the neums. You won't have any pain. And best of all, this surgery is going to be 80% paid for and you can keep your doctor. That is what it's going to look like and sound like. So from this perspective, sitting here in 2022, many people will be emphatic and say, I won't, and I won't. But the requirements that will come upon people is why the Lord always says that many will fall away. So these prophecies are being given in a manner and a form that when you go to the blog and read them, you should understand first and foremost what God is saying, and then you should understand second and second most that every single life that is upon this planet is going to be touched in some way by the transformation of this world into a digitized monitoring. You give us this and we will give you that. We scratch your back and then you give us your soul type of world. So Peace and safety is the language of the future. Peace and safety is the trade-off of the future. And so this is why the people of God need to decide now to start sowing the necessary seeds of understanding, repentance, holiness, and clinging to the Lord now. If you don't work on your sailing ability, you can hardly claim that when the sea is doing this and the winds are blowing and the storms rise, that is when you're suddenly going to become a master sailor. It's impossible, and it doesn't work like that.
You have to always pay attention and discern what you're looking at, discern what you're dealing with, especially now more than ever. Living in the last days, there's a lot of crazy things going around. So you must pay attention, discern, guide your footsteps, get your house in order, make sure your spirit is right. But hey, everyone has their own thought and opinion. Make sure you drop down in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about this video. See y'all next time.